My name is James Coughlin. I'm a regional legal director at Dell Technologies, where I'm responsible for technology transactions and manage a team of lawyers and contracts professionals who negotiate directly with our customers. I'm also a member of the ACC Northeast Board and a founding member and chair currently of the ACC's Next Gen committee. I managed a team that's fully remote to me for the past year. And for the 2 or 3 years prior to that, I had remote team members that were based throughout the globe. But what I found important in these times is that it's helpful to double down on the relationship aspect of managing the folks that report to you. And that could mean improving what works, using video where necessary, which is something that my team had done for a while, but being more deliberate in when we use video and working it into the equation for one-on-ones, for team meetings, for impromptu meetings where possible. It just helps to be able to engage with people better, to connect with them on a more intimate level and having understanding of picking up on their nonverbal cues. You can kind of get a sense for where they're coming from. We've used it, as I mentioned, for an opportunity to improve what works, meaning the video aspect. We've tried to have less formal ways that we get together, whether that's team happy hours or trivia nights and other opportunities for us to build team and to rely on that trust in other aspects of the relationships that we're building with each other so that we can be as efficient, as productive as possible. I would say that obviously now it's more important than ever to have that trust and reliability in times of uncertainty. And any manager who's new to managing a remote team, should think about whether there's other opportunities for them to build a more effective virtual atmosphere for their team members. That could mean, obviously, like I've mentioned, video calls with folks or video team calls to get a sense and a feel for how everyone is doing. Maybe even setting up office hours where folks are available during a certain period of time and setting clear expectations for when availability and timing on responses should be met. I think it's important to keep that in mind, especially with everything that folks have going on at home, to keep in mind that setting clear expectations is helpful for being able to communicate effectively with team members. And I think that helps, obviously, to build mutual trust and respect with team members. And last, I would say that it's important to find ways to celebrate successes and to recognize people that have reached certain accomplishments, whether that be on team calls or just one-on-one saying thank you to people. And also there's obviously opportunities to communicate that throughout the department or throughout your company with other members of leadership to make sure that folks know that your team's doing a great job in these times. Leadership is super important in times like these. I think it's times of uncertainty or crisis where leadership is most important and really shines through. For me, what that means is being authentic and really leading with empathy, optimism, and inspiration if possible. So from the perspective of empathy, I think it's important, as I mentioned, to keep in mind that people have a lot of things going on at home and a lot of concerns that they have that they bring to the table every day when they come to work. Could be that they have to care for an aging parent, or they're worried about a loved one getting sick in a nursing home at this point. Could be that they're worried about childcare for the child that they have at home, or the need to homeschool and teach algebra subjects maybe that they forgot from when they were in school. So it's important to keep those anxieties and stresses in mind. And I think that's where video calls come into play. You can certainly, as I mentioned, gauge some level of where the person is feeling at the time. It's important to start one-on-ones and team calls, asking how folks are doing, and try to gauge the level of comfort they have with their day-to-day. And where possible, to be flexible with them and empathetic to their situation, whether that's a flexible work environment or giving them help on a project that they may not otherwise have needed, but because of the circumstances that we're living under, it's something that's important to get the job done and to support them. I think it's also from an opportunity perspective, using this as an opportunity. I think it's important to look at this and remind team members of what they have control over. So I think that's where the optimism piece and the inspirational piece comes in. Team members certainly have control over their own productivity. They have control over, how they manage their projects, taking care of themselves and balancing their work and life situation and the current mix that we live in, I think is all important for folks to keep in mind that they have control over that. And, they have a role and they have responsibility and purpose at the end of the day when it comes to what they can deliver in a day in, day out basis when they come to work. So I think all that's important, and being transparent with people, as transparent as possible. I think, leadership is about communicating, whether that's a tough message or whether that's a good message, communicating in a crisp and transparent way, and being there for people when you need them or when they need you. For me, there are a lot of personal experiences that I could share, and I think it's been an interesting ride for the past month or so. I've always contemplated this concept of work-life balance and thought maybe it's more appropriate to consider it work-life integration. Work-life balance meaning, over time I've found it to be blurry lines between work and home life and how to balance that out, how to separate the two. What I found that's worked in maybe technology and interconnectedness that we have in our own workplaces at this point has proven this to be true. But I've found that work-life integration is actually probably the more appropriate way to say it. And when you embrace that and engage that appropriately, it can actually be pretty meaningful and it can be leveraged to one's advantage. So for me, that translates into potentially taking my daughter for a walk when I have a conference call that I don't need to be in front of my computer. Sometimes she'll join me on conference calls and actually say hi to some of my colleagues who she's met before in person. So, it's important to keep all of that in perspective, to not lose sight of obviously what's most important at these times, but keeping a balance where possible and integrating and leveraging that where possible, I think is helpful for people to keep in mind, and not getting frustrated where it seems like maybe one aspect of life or the other, whether it's work or life, is shining through more, whether it's cats or dogs or people that you live with joining a conference call impromptu and kind of photobombing, as some colleagues have mentioned has happened. It's really a matter of just embracing it. We're all kind of in this together at this point, and taking, I guess, into consideration that there's also probably some humor there too is helpful at times like this. The ACCNE Next Gen group within the Northeast chapter was founded several years ago, and the goal really is to build camaraderie amongst folks who have been in practice for 10 years or less, and give them the opportunity to benchmark and trade stories and have an understanding of what other folks are going through who are new to in-house. And so within the past couple of years, we've really tried to build up a base and have meaningful get-togethers, whether it's a happy hour or substantive conversations where we have panelists talk about certain topics. May 14th at 5 o'clock, we're actually going to hold our next virtual meeting. It's going to be a meetup of members, and we're actually going to talk more about some of the topics we've been talking about today, about remote work, about balancing a lot of the aspects of life that are thrown at us at this point, and finding ways to be mindful and to stay well during these times.